Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Niner Family Huddle podcast. This one will not be as fun as the last one. We are not coming off a big win against a sorry-ass team like the Bears. We just witnessed a depressing and, frankly, pathetic loss to the Rams. Playoff chances are essentially over, and we're going to talk about all that and more after this. Sad. 49ers playoff chances I saw are under 1% at this point. I did find a tweet before this game that laid out a way the Niners could make the playoffs with a 9-8 record, and they need to get all this help and stuff like that. And I was planning on sharing that before the Rams game, but I'd kind of forgotten about it. And just as I was getting ready for this, I reviewed it, and the one key was that they couldn't lose in the division again. They had to beat the Cardinals and the Rams. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this picture. This is officially useless now.
Wow.
So yeah, it's over. Where would you guys like to start? You guys want to talk about the game and what went wrong, or do you want to get into some of the drama with Devondre Campbell first?
Let's do game and then go drama, I think. Steven, you
Okay.
go first.
I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Let's focus on the important stuff, the stuff that matters. The stuff that doesn't matter is Devondre Campbell. So let's start with the stuff, on-field performance.
All right. Well, what's funny you say the on-field performance because the first person who I have the most criticizing for wasn't on the field last night. It was the Kyle Shanahan. I was kind of texting you guys how frustrated I was with his play calling and the game plan, and I thought he was so good against the Bears, and I thought if he was a 10 out of 10 against the Bears, he was the opposite in this. He was a 0 out of 10, and the players played like crap. They certainly deserve a ton of criticism. We'll hand that criticism out. We'll divvy up the blame pie, if you will. But I think Kyle deserves a ton of criticism in this. And before I just start rambling for the next 10 minutes on all my issues with Kyle, what did you guys think of Kyle and the coaching in general and the game plan for this game?
I'm going to start on the positive side, which means on the other side of the ball. I thought it was one of Nick Sorensen's best game plans going into it. They played phenomenally in the first half. And even in the second half, I still thought that they played good. They just lost a couple pieces, the main piece being Dre Greenlaw, and clearly like their run game got going. Dre Greenlaw was a beast, and it was especially a beast against the run. And so their run game got going, and that kind of put the nail in the coffin, as well as like the offense not being able to put points on the board when it really mattered. So that actually made me hopeful that Nick Sorensen could be our defensive coordinator of the future. So I feel like he strung a few good game plans together here. And I thought his game plan, whether he and Staley, right? Brandon Staley. Yeah, both of them. I don't know how to divvy up that credit, but I thought just a great game plan. On offense, yeah, I don't love the game plan, but I'm probably not as critical as you are. I honestly just thought that, like, I don't know how to assign that blame, but I feel like the players straight up didn't execute at a high level. So I'm maybe probably going to be somewhere, I feel like, in between, like Ryan and maybe what I feel like, Steven, you're going to say. Maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying Kyle doesn't deserve blame. He definitely does. He's the head coach, and the offense stunk. So, like, yeah, he's the first you got to point the finger at. But, man, it was one of the worst games I've seen Purdy play. I thought he was really bad. Mm-hmm. Just bad decisions, bad throws. I mean, it was bad. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but that's my initial thoughts. What do you think, Steven?
The last thing you said was exactly where I was planning to go, is that this is like the most concerned I felt about Brock since he's been the starter. And it's probably because it's on the heels of other games where he hasn't looked so good. I mean, we've talked about not being good in the weather, so that, I guess to be expected. But what bothered me the most last night was his decision making.
Yeah.
And I I mean, I'm not trying to give Kyle a pass by any stretch. Like you said, he's the head coach. The buck stops with him. He's ultimately accountable for everything that happens out there. But like we've been talking, and Ryan especially has been talking about, why are we force feeding Debo? Like, why? I kind of wonder if it's Brock who's doing it, not Kyle. I mean, it's probably a combination of the two, but Brock said last week, nobody wants to get him the ball more than I do, and he's one of my guys and been like the closest to me and everything. And so I don't know how much of it is Kyle, how much of it is Brock. It's probably a combination of the two. But yeah, I mean, there were so many plays I feel like where it's like, oh, that why'd you go there? Or why didn't you do
Yeah.
that? And so that just frustrated me, because yeah, it's tough weather. Yeah, it's Thursday night, so it's short turnaround. Guys are probably not as healthy as they otherwise would be. I mean, I think I even talked about it on our last pod that Thursday night football in general, expect, the defense to have the advantage, lower scoring game, not like it's going to be sloppy. It's not going to
Yeah.
look as good. So from that standpoint, it's like, hey, you guys proved me right. Thanks. Like both sides. But man, they just seem like there were plays to be had. And that's why I feel like, the thing that you've referenced a couple times, Ryan, where the answers are in the play or whatever. I feel like there were answers. I saw answers on plays, and Brock didn't take those answers. And I don't know why. And maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's pressure that, forced him to make some bad decisions at times. But yeah, his whole thing is he's supposed to be, you know, mature beyond his years and unflappable. And the guy just makes the right decisions and he can process things so quickly. And it's like, if you're not doing those things, then I'm a little concerned about you, because you're not going to make it happen with just your pure athletic ability or talent or whatever. But so that was my biggest concern. I'll talk positives later, but that was my biggest concern. There's obviously other things to be concerned about, but yeah, I want to give Ryan a chance to talk about the game before I talk about implications of that for Brock, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the quarterback and number one, Tyshawn Samuel, because Debo Samuel's not on this team anymore. Um, in fact, I got a drop here for Debo.
This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play.
It kind of breaks my heart to play that, but like he can't do it anymore. He's averaged 2 yards a carry or so, or less over the last month plus. I saw someone say that if you took his yards from scrimmage totals over the last 5 games and added them up, he wouldn't have 100 yards. That sounds crazy to say. Debo used to get 100 yards if he could touch the ball 4 times. Um, and yeah, so and as far as Brock, I agree. One of the things that made him so good in 2022 and 2023 was that he was the right amount of aggressive while still protecting the ball. He was throwing the ball deep. He was hitting on deep throws. He was checking the ball down, probably because he had a healthy Christian McCaffrey. Earlier this season, he was not checking the ball down, and he started doing that once McCaffrey came back. But there were plenty of times where Jordan Mason was open underneath, and he would just pass it up and force something to Jawan or Ayuk downfield, who was obviously having a slow year himself. And things just weren't working out. And now it's like, I don't know if he's trying to do like, he's actually reminding me a little bit of Dak Prescott, where like he's starting to press and he feels like he's got to do it all himself. And that's causing him to make bad decisions. We've seen Dak be a really good quarterback for weeks and months at a time. And then he gets in a stressful situation like a playoff game against the Niners, and he's like playing out of character. And Brock kind of I feel like I kind of saw that last night. And you could see it on his face the second he threw that deep ball to Jawan and it got intercepted. You could see on his face he was thinking like, why did I throw that? Like he had instant regret. It wasn't like well, it was there, but I missed the throw. Like there was nothing there. And he even said after the game that he was expecting one look from the defense, but got a different one, and he just kind of threw it up for Jawan. It's like there are times in a game or in a season where throwing it up and letting your guy make a play is okay. And if he doesn't make a play and it gets picked, it's not the end of the world. But with your season on a line, you haven't even gotten in the red zone once this game. That was the first time in Shanahan's career his offense has never reached the red zone, by the way. Points are a premium. We're kicking field goals here in the rain. It's 6-6 or 9-6, I think, Rams. You can't. Now is not the time for throw it up and let your guy make a play. We don't need a touchdown. So, we want one, sure, but we don't need one. I've talked about this before, where Tom Brady has said there's a time to put the cape on and there's a time to not put the cape on. And you, as a quarterback, you have to know what situation calls for what. And Brock, I feel like Brock a lot this year has failed to recognize what the moment calls for. Does he need to run here? Does he need to get aggressive with a throw? Should he just hit the ground and take a sack or throw it away? And he's making poor decisions. And like you said, Steven, he doesn't have the physical talent to make up for slow decision making or bad decision making. And last night, I don't want to say he cost the Niners the game, because Debo had a drop that could have gone for a touchdown that you could argue cost them the game. The failure to stop the run toward the end of the game once Dre Greenlaw went out cost. I mean, it was a full team effort on why they lost the game. But Brock, I think, had one of his worst performances as a Niner. And this whole can't play in the rain, can't play in the inclement weather. I don't want to say snow, because most quarterbacks can't play in the snow, and they almost never. You could go 2 or 3 seasons without ever playing in the snow, but you're going to play in the rain once or twice a year, probably every year. Especially even if you play in the Bay Area, which is, people think of California as sunny and warm, but the Bay Area gets cold and wet in December. So you're going to play postseason games, especially if you're the number one seed playing at home. You're going to play in some rain games. So you're going to play in Seattle as a division opponent. You're going to play in the rain. So it's concerning that Brock has consistently struggled in the rain, and I don't really know what he or the team can do to fix it.
Yeah, I don't know what they need to do to fix it either, but it's not acceptable, definitely. Steven, do you want to go into kind of like the implications that you were talking about?
So Ryan said something really interesting, talked about in 2022 and 2023, taking care of the ball, blah, blah, blah. So I thought he was really, really good in 2023. 2022, I remember he had multiple dropped picks. Like they were in defenders' hands, and it seemed like he was getting so lucky,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5, I want to say at least, which probably made his numbers look better. And remember in that year that he would do that weird turn around and run the other way, escape
He would
pressure.
bail out to his left
Yes.
repeatedly.
Yeah. And he kind of fixed that, but it just seems like that last night made me think of that, because he jumped a couple times. One time he jumped and completed a pass. Another time he jumped into a defender.
Yeah,
So,
got stacked.
That was kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, it felt like bad habits rearing their ugly head, get uncomfortable, get flustered, and what do I do? And it's like, dude, you should be past that. You didn't have that happen to you last year. Even the Ravens game that was probably his worst game last year, some of those picks were just good plays by the Ravens in that game. It wasn't like,
I would even say at least 1 or 2 of them are totally flukes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not it's just why is 2024 Brock so different from 2023 Brock? Early in the year, we were talking about how, hey, it's really cool to see him trying to attack downfield and he's being more aggressive. And I do like that, but you got to find the balance. You can't be all that or all this other thing. And it's if you're going to feed anybody, if you're going to keep trying to force it to anybody, then throw it to George. Quit trying to force it to Debo. The amount of touches, and I know you've talked about this before, Ryan, but the amount of touches that Debo gets is the amount of touches that Kittle should be getting. And it's just so frustrating, because I don't know that that's on Kyle. But the implications thing that I wanted to talk about was it makes me wonder, is he's going to get paid. He's going to get a good contract. But is it going to be the difference between 60 million a year, 50 million a year, 40 million a year. Like, I mean, that's probably getting too low for like today's starting quarterbacks. But I mean, I almost wonder like he's still under contract next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, they could play it out and be like, "Hey, look, man, we think you took a step back." I don't expect them to do that, nor am I saying that that's what they should do, but they could do it based on what has happened. And honestly, after that, they could franchise him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they have to go break the bank for him if they're having any doubts. And for me, right now having the most doubts that I've ever had since Brock took over. And like I said, last night was a bad game, but it's on the heels of other poor performances or subpar. Maybe not poor, might be too strong, but subpar from what we would come to expect from him. And I almost want, like, on the one hand, I feel like, okay, let's not break the bank and treat this guy like he is, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type of guy. Like, oh, we got to lock him up for as long as possible and pay whatever. But I'm also kind of wondering, because I want to spin it positive, is this kind of a blessing in disguise? Like, do you think that they can use this as some leverage to be like, yeah,
Definitely.
we're going to pay you 40 or 50 or 40 or 45 million a year instead of 55 or 60 million a year? That's a big difference with the cap to help with other players. So maybe this works out in their favor, because I'm not saying like get rid of Brock. Don't confuse anything I'm saying here. I still think that he's a really good quarterback and he works well in Shanahan's system. But I am concerned if he can't figure it out up here, because I feel like that's where his strength is. So that's what I was thinking. Like, it sucks. I have my doubts, but hey, can the Niners use this to their advantage and maybe re-sign him for a little bit less?
Brock seems to have something in common with the head coach. Is that like when things are going well and there's a lot of talent, like, man, they can just pile it on. When other things are going well, he can go 20 for 22 for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But like when there's adversity, when there's pressure, like literally like a ferocious pass rush and confusing defensive schemes, which the Rams clearly had a great game plan on defense that had him flustered and under pressure. When he deals with that, he really struggles. And it's similar to Shanahan, where it's like in close games, he doesn't really look great. He doesn't show that he can consistently put the Superman cape on and go win it like Mahomes or like Lamar or Josh Allen would definitely do and do consistently. They can be that game manager, and then when they need the cape, they can throw the cape on. Brock can be a really great game manager and can put a ton of points up and lead a really ferocious offense, but I just don't see him putting that Superman cape on for those really tough games. And we're going to need that, especially like in future playoff runs. Like, we're going to be playing good teams, good defenses, good defensive coaches, and he's going to need to be able to go above and beyond if we're going to win those games, because we're not always going to be, I mean, I'd like to be, but we're not. I would highly doubt if we're consistently just always the most talented team in football or one of the most talented. Like, there's going to be times, especially when Brock gets paid, there's going to be times where it's like you need to put that cape on. And so, yeah, it is a little concerning. I'd say I agree. It's the most I've been concerned, but also still really hopeful that they lock him up. I don't know about the specifics of whether, I mean, if they could negotiate it down more, that's great. Obviously, that's ideal because then they have more money to spend on other players. But I'd say it's the most I've been concerned as well.
So, Ryan, I definitely want to let you go. I know I talked more recent, but Chasen said something I want to respond to directly. I agree with his overall point and think that he's right about him getting flustered, and you don't want him to do that. I don't necessarily agree that he needs to do that in the playoffs. What he needs to do is understand his limitations and not try to put the cape on if he's not capable of doing it, and just play within the offense, because I think you can still win a Super Bowl doing that if you are making the right decisions. I think Tom Brady did that for his first 3 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
He was just not just, but he didn't screw it up, right? He played well. He made a couple big throws when he needed to, but he wasn't the Tom Brady that he became. He eventually became that guy. So I feel like if Brock isn't trying to be that and make everything happen and he's playing within the offense, I think they can be very successful. I think that's what they did last year. They were right there to win, but he has to be willing and able to say like, okay, I'm not Patrick Mahomes. I'm not trying to do something crazy here. I'm going to take this check down because that's the smart thing to do right here. Anyways, that's what I think.
Yeah, we've talked about Brock and his level of clutchness. I mixed Brock and clutch. And he's had some opportunities throughout his 2 years of starting out to show that he can bring the team back in the fourth quarter at the end of a game and get a field goal or a game-winning touchdown or something. And largely he's failed, unfortunately. And I was thinking about kind of what you guys were saying, or you were just saying about Tom Brady, and I was thinking about a 49er legend before my time, Joe Montana. I'm thinking about the modern day Patrick Mahomes. These guys are like the ultimate clutch quarterback. And I was thinking about what makes them clutch, and it isn't throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not why they're clutch. They're clutch because for 3.5 quarters, they struggle. And at the very end, when the team needs them to just do one drive, we need you right now, they do it. And no one's doing that better in the NFL right now than Patrick Mahomes. It's like at an annoying level, he's so good at it. And Joe Montana, I mean, if you go back and watch, and I haven't watched a ton of old Joe Montana games, but one of the most famous games, the catch, that NFC Championship game, you would think based on kind of the lore of that game that Joe Montana had some awesome game. He threw like 2 or 3 picks. He fumbled the ball away. Like he played like crap for a lot of that game. But at the end of the game, in the moment they needed him most, he came through. And that's what makes a clutch quarterback. And Brock is not that. To Jason's point, Brock can pile it on you. He can destroy you. He's like a snowball going downhill. If he builds momentum, he can destroy you. And we saw that throughout 2022 and 2023. But kind of, and I like your connection there, Jason, to Shanahan, because Shanahan's the same way. When he's on, he can scheme it up and embarrass you. But when the team starts fighting back and they've got a good game plan of their own, all of a sudden the train just comes off the tracks and there is no like plan B or plan C. So yeah, the off-season negotiation between the front office and Brock is going to be really interesting. I do agree that they're probably going to pay him, but they don't have to. I was hoping we wouldn't really have to have this conversation, at least in like a real in-depth, and we're not going to tonight. But because I was hoping that the remainder of the games this season would matter as far as whether or not they get in the playoffs, and now unfortunately they don't. So like if you told me Brock goes out over the next 3 games and he destroys the Dolphins and plays great against the Lions and beats the Cardinals, it's like, who cares? Because when we needed you most against the Rams, when it mattered the most, you fell short and you made one of the worst decisions I've seen you make, and you made an awful throw, and you essentially put the dagger in the Niners season. So yeah, it was really frustrating to watch him just miss throw after throw. I mean, he had 2 deep throws to Kittle, underthrown. The long pass to Ricky, underthrown. That could have been a walk-in touchdown. He did hit Debo in stride on that 3rd and 10, which at a bare minimum is a first down. Could have been a touchdown. He missed Jawan on a sideline throw that I can't remember exactly what it was, but he overthrew him. Even the very last throw of the game, right before they ended on the sack for the Hail Mary, they tried to get a big chunk play to Ricky Pearsall, who was about as open as you can hope to be in the NFL, and Brock just missed him bad. It was like, oh my gosh. So
that was a sweet play too. In that type of coverage to get him open on the sideline like that, I was like, damn, I'm impressed. And of course, you missed it.
yeah, I mean that was a 20-yard gain or something like that. If he hits him and he goes out of bounds, and then they've got the Hail Mary is now 30 yards instead of 50.
Right.
And in the rain, I'm not even sure if Brock can get it there. And it's kind of funny too. I still had hope, like, George is a pretty big guy. Jawan's a contested catch guy. Maybe they can do this. And then as soon as I saw the Rams D line and like one of their linebackers just rush, I was like, oh god.
I was super impressed that the Rams did that. Like nobody
It's
does
smart.
that. So
That's what people should do more often, I think.
Yeah, don't even let the quarterback get the throw off.
I don't know if you guys went back and watched. I just saw on the broadcast when they showed like the replay, like McKivitz never touched anybody, and Pooney like olayed somebody basically. And I was like, "What the hell are you guys doing? Like this is it's a Hail Mary. Like at least like fall down trying to block somebody instead of just like I got my stance, I'm ready."
I wonder if they weren't expecting those guys to rush too, but yeah, there's really no excuse. It's like your season's online in this play. You got to do something to buy Brock some time. And
really quick, that was Brock's worst game of the season, in my opinion. I think it was also the offensive line's worst game of the season. They got their butts kicked in the run game. They got their butts kicked in pass rush. They were getting their butts kicked left and right. And I know we're without our Hall of Fame left tackle, and we chronically don't invest in the O-line, but they've been better than that this season. And I don't know what happened. I know the Rams D-line is underrated, but it ain't that great, to get your butt kicked that bad, especially in the run game is where it hurt. Because Garindo, I thought he played his tail off. I thought he had a nice game. He just didn't have a lot of holes to punch through, and that could have really been the difference maker.
Well,
so, I hope
he didn't
that
get enough opportunities either, Chasen. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, golly, we need to invest in our offensive line this offseason. If we want to be the bullies still, we can't just get our offensive line tossed around, because that's where you establish that you're the bully, is that you beat up the other team in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. And we consistently get beat up on the offensive line. And in this past game, they got killed, absolutely demolished. It was bad.
Go ahead, Steven.
No, I was just say it's funny because Chasen, he's always preaching O-line, and I feel like I'm always thinking D-line, because I feel like if you made me pick one or the other, it's like I want an absolute beast on the interior of the D-line that's just going to blow stuff up. Like we
need that too.
To me, that's more important than even the O-line. But like you talk about bullying and stuff, I want a tone setter out there.
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, they've failed at both because they've dumped a ton of draft capital into the D-line and missed, and they haven't dumped any draft capital into the O-line. So the D-line is thin, and there's no talent because they've missed on talent. The O-line has no talent because they haven't invested in it. And, the Rams, Kyron Williams got like 29 carries last night. He only averaged like 3.5 yards a carry. The Niners did pretty well stopping the run. But to McVay's credit, it didn't discourage him. He kept pounding the friggin' ball. And this is what I was saying in our group text, like, run the ball. And if Garendo gains 1 yard, run the ball again. Like, just pound the friggin' ball. Because instead of getting 3rd and 8 after you throw an incomplete forced pass to Debo, then you run the ball for 2 yards, and now it's 3rd and 8. Well, if you'd run the ball twice, maybe it's 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. And in the rain, like, every friggin' inch matters. So and Kyle said it after the game, they couldn't get the run game going. And to me, it kind of felt like Kyle gave up on it a little prematurely, which he's done in the past. He's done in the Super Bowl. With the Jimmy G 2019 Super Bowl, I think he kind of got away from the run. Obviously, everyone roasts him for the 28-3 Falcons and Patriots Super Bowl because they just stopped running the ball in the second half. Kyle has a tendency to get away from the run. It's like if he's not gaining 4 or 5 yards of carry, he's like, well, it's just not working. Like, well, like keep trying. And to Chasen's point, I know the offensive line was getting their butts kicked last night. So, I mean, I kind of get you're not gaining the yards. The O-line's getting your butt kicked. I kind of get it. But at the same time, as we've talked about, you've got a quarterback who struggles in the rain. So your best bet is probably just stick with it. And you've got a running back who runs in the 4.3s. Who knows? Maybe he'll break one, and that'll be the lone touchdown of the game. And I was really disappointed in Kyle's game plan overall. Do you guys think, because I've seen people arguing that Kyle was totally force feeding Debo, and I've seen people say, no. he got his normal amount of targets. And Steven, you even made the point. Maybe it's Kyle or maybe it's Brock who's forcing the ball. I think it's Kyle, not Brock, and I'll tell you why, and you guys can agree or disagree. Brock has said in the past, when like recently, when George was like, "Hey, maybe I should get the ball a few more times." People have asked Brock like, "Hey, why don't you target George more?" And Brock always has the same answers for these type of questions. Well, Kyle calls the plays, I go through my reads, and I just try to find the open guy. Okay, great. The first play of the game, and in hindsight, seeing the first play of the game, this should have been the omen of like, this is what this game is going to be. They snap the ball to Brock. Debo's got a quick slant. He's getting blanketed by a Kello freaking Witherspoon. Not an inch of separation. And Brock just fires him the ball, and it's incomplete. He didn't go through his reads. Even if Debo's the first read, well, he's covered. So where's the second and the third read? He just fired the ball there. Like the game plan was like, just throw the ball to Debo. That tells me that Kyle is calling the play, and the plan is get the ball to Debo, not go through your reads, not make Debo the first read, just throw the ball to Debo.
It's funny. I took it almost the opposite of like if Brock is saying that Kyle calls the plays and I go through my reads, but he's not going through his reads, that almost tells me that he's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's not doing what he's been coached to do. He's just trying to get it to Debo. But I don't know. You could be right.
No, that's a good point. And here's the second half of what I was going to say. That 3rd and 6 play, or it might have been the first drive of the game. I can't remember. I think it was because they kicked. It's 3rd and 6. They hand the ball to Debo. He gains 2 yards because that's what Debo does now. And it's 4th and 4. And I'm like, okay, well, you did that obviously because you're planning on going for it on 4th down, right? If you're going to run on 3rd down, fine. If you're going for it on 4th. And then he sends Moody out there for a 53-yard field goal in the rain. And I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How does that make any sense at all? So because that first play was just like a quick throw to Debo, and then they're running the ball to Debo on 3rd down, trying to get him to break a play or who knows what.
Yeah.
To me, that's Kyle calling plays for Debo, and Brock is just being the robot that Kyle wants him to be.
Yeah. I agree. When he ran Debo on 3rd down, I was like, oh, that means we're being aggressive. Like, that means we're going to go for it for sure. And then they ran Jake out there. I was so confused by that. I was like, what are we
should have
doing?
known right then and there this game is going to be terribly called game plan. This is going to be a bad game.
Yeah. That was a weird decision.
Well, I know we're going to be limited on. I mean, I don't want to cut you short on anything else you want to say about Kyle, but I did want to circle back to something Chasen said right off the top and spin a little positive out of this game because.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick. I've been thinking about it a lot today about like. I've been thinking about I'm not gonna get too deep into it because I know we don't have a ton of time, but I've been thinking about like the origin of sports from like thousands of years ago.
Whoa.
And how they're like war simulations. Because that's why people play games. They are war games. And I was thinking about this because Kyle is the head coach. He's the general. The general makes the battle plans. The captains underneath the general carry out the battle plans. They lead the troops into war. Kyle's job as the head coach is to come up with the game plan to know your enemy's strengths and weaknesses, know your own strengths and weaknesses, come up with a battle plan, and coach up your guys to execute the game plan and go win a battle. Now, sports is not war, obviously, but it is, especially football, coordination, training, violence. It is simulated warfare at its core. That's what football is. And I feel like Kyle had an awful, awful game plan. I don't think he knew his team's strengths and weaknesses. Throwing the ball too much with a quarterback who can't throw in the rain. He didn't know the Rams' strengths and weaknesses because they've got like a mid-level D-line. They got a sorry secondary, so I guess it makes sense to throw the ball. But I just thought Kyle's game plan, if he was a general or a head coach like he is, was just bad. And this is where I'm going to cut my rant short, but I was thinking about like the 300 Spartans and their war against the Persians and how they took on tens of thousands of Persians because they had an elite general with an elite game plan. and they were able to fight for days and days and days, way longer than they should have, because they had excellent planning and excellent strategy and execution. And Kyle, to me, if he was a war general, I'd rather fight for Bill Belichick or Andy Reid. Those guys know how to adjust and self-analyze, and that's what I feel like Kyle cannot do. He cannot self-analyze and recognize his own strengths and weaknesses, his team's strengths and weaknesses, and come up with a plan. He's just like, we do what we do, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I was ranting in my head all day about this, thinking about Spartans and the 49ers. Like, it was insane. I'm not going to get too much into it right now.
Well,
but
they've adopted that for their first down chant, right? So it's connected.
I don't really hear that anymore on TV. Are they still doing it?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard it sometimes, but I don't know.
I don't feel like it ever really caught on. I think they tried, but I remember going to the games with Jim Harbaugh was coaching, and they were really kind of get that thing going, and it was always like half the stadium was doing it.
But I'm not gonna go as deep as you or talk about all that. Like, I think that's interesting, and
I was so frustrated.
Something to talk about later. Only thing I'll say is, and I'm not saying that Kyle called a great game last night, but only thing I'll say is, if Brock throws those balls on target that we talked about, if he hits Pearsall in stride, if he throws it, because he had one to Jawan that he, not the interception, but he had another one that it was a bad throw. I mean,
the Kittle one.
And if Debo catches that one, like,
we're looking at Kyle in a whole different light, right?
Yeah, he might have 3 touchdowns, and it's like, so the game plan, to me, that's not the game plan. Now, you can give him grief for not getting his guys to execute and maybe not having them prepared. Like you talked about, Ryan, they don't practice with wet balls or whatever. So you definitely blame still for him. I'm not trying to absolve him of blame, but I'm just saying that the plan, because you even just said it, like, if their secondary is not good, attack it. But that's where it's got to work in unison. We know that. Like, football's got to be so coordinated with the coaching and the players and everybody on the same page, and they're clearly not. And yeah, ultimately that's on Kyle. So anyways, yeah, like I said, I'm not disagreeing, but I also feel like if you're gonna talk about the plan, you got to think about, it's easier to judge that as being a bad plan when you see the results, whereas Brock makes a couple better throws, they win by 10 points. We're not saying that,
True, but maybe you don't ask your quarterback who struggles to throw in the rain to throw deep passes.
Agree. Yeah, no, like I said, that's, if you're gonna do that, then prepare him, have him practice with wet footballs, work on that throughout the year. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I like I said, I'm not pushing back on that part. I'm just saying, like it's almost all the way there, and he just couldn't quite get it over the top.
I'm just saying, in the offseason, Kyle Shanahan needs to read The Art of War. It's one of the most famous books ever. It's all about warfare and strategy. Kyle, read it, and you will be a better head coach.
I would love for him to bring in somebody to do the passing game when he can focus on the run game. And we'll talk about that in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see, really quick, the pass to Kittle that was short that he still almost caught, actually?
The PI?
Yeah. That didn't get called. Did you see that ball had like slipped out of Brock's hand, and the commentator was like, I don't know how he still got it down there. And that's just like a perfect example of, like, Brock can't throw in the rain. The ball's always slipping out of his hands. It's not accurate.
I wonder if he's tried a glove and he just doesn't like it. Because I feel like Stafford started the game with a glove, but I remember at one point seeing him like throw it to the sideline, like, get this thing, I'm done with it. So I don't know.
It's funny because I feel like I end up being the Kyle apologist on here, and I swear I'm not trying to be. I mean, you guys both know that
I'm probably overly critical, honestly.
Well, and maybe I give him too much leeway, so that's fine. But I feel like
Jason to help find a balance.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. In the middle.
But like, even when you're talking about all this with Brock, and you're like, Kyle having practice, like, Brock shouldn't need Kyle to tell him. He should know. He's a professional.
Totally agree.
He should know, like, okay, all off season, every day, I'm going to throw some wet footballs somewhere. Like,
go in the backyard with your wife and play catch with a wet football.
Right. Hose down a bunch of footballs and start throwing them. Like, I just, like, if you need Kyle to do that for you, then we're really in trouble. Like, you should know. But anyway.
I don't disagree. Something has to be done about the wet balls. I don't know what it is. I hear people talk about hand size, like, well, maybe Brock just got small hands, but he has the same size hands as Patrick Mahomes. So
Yeah.
to me, it's not a hand size thing. That's kind of a lazy argument. It's not. That's not it.
His
It's more arm strength, or maybe it's throwing technique. Maybe it's lower mechanics. I'm not a freaking quarterback. I don't know,
could
but
even be grip. It could be as simple as grip. The Chris
Grip
Sims
strength.
specialty, right? He always wants to look at grips.
yeah,
Um,
maybe get a few more fingers on the laces, a few less fingers on the laces. I don't know. He's got to play with it though in the off season.
So, but to spin it positive, because I know we only have about 10 minutes left, and I did want to
Mm-hmm.
go back to Chasen's point that he made right in the beginning. I actually thought the defense was really good last night. I mean, yeah, they got wore out, and I do think once again, just like we've seen in the past, once Greenlaw was gone, it was a noticeable difference. Um,
I got a quote here from Dre Greenlaw.
all right.
I'm thinking I'm back.
That's John Wick, but yeah, Dre was awesome last night. 9
He
tackles in the
was.
first half.
Oh, it just felt better, didn't it? Like just the whole like you can see exactly what Fred talks about, that he has an impact on everybody. So it actually made me feel so much better about the Niners defense than what I felt, because Nick was out there and it was great to have him back too. I didn't really feel like he made that many impact plays. It almost felt like he was more of a decoy. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything, because I know you don't have to get a sack to, he's probably rusty, whatever.
He had a
But
couple decent tackles in the run game, but didn't really do much to Stafford.
yeah, but not so Dre, awesome, amazing. What I had hoped for and expected was for him to come back and fire everybody up. But Chasen also talked about, I think he put this in the text chain. He talked about on the last pod, he put it in our text chain, just about how good our secondary was. And yeah, they had a couple blown assignments, but overall, I mean, we were talking about how Cup and Nakua was like a really tough assignment. We
Mm-hmm.
know that Stafford is awesome, and the announcers talked about it a few times last night. I mean, they made Stafford look pretty pedestrian, and I know Nakua got that one long pass, but other than that, they really had them bottled up. And like, I mean, that was really encouraging to me, was to see how well the secondary did and just how well the defense looked like they could play when they're at full strength. But anyway, so yeah, props to Jason for calling that out.
Yeah, I mean Stafford, he did miss some throws too. So I don't want to say, man, Brock just thinks in the rain. I'm sure every quarterback doesn't like playing in the rain. He missed some throws, but yeah, Lenore had some pass breakups, dropped a pick.
There's
Huff
a
dropped
lot
a
of stuff
pick that hit
there.
him right between the numbers.
Yeah.
I thought Mooney played well. That blown long ball, I saw people on this guy on Twitter kind of breaking it down. He was saying like people are going to blame Mooney because he was in coverage there, but like Jason said, I think he was expecting some safety help. And
I
I don't know
think it
if you
was
guys
tough.
noticed, but Tayshaun Gibson was on the field quite a bit last night because Jair Brown got hurt. So
Mm.
maybe he's a little rusty and missed an assignment there because he was on the other side of the field.
Hmm.
I
And
watched that play back. It looked to me like it was on Huff. Granted, I've never played football, so I don't understand coverages, but it looked to me, just based on where people were lined up and where they dropped into their coverages, that it should have been Huff that was over the top, which, you know, Huff is prone to blowing coverages here and there. I think he also blew that one where they motioned over and the guy was wide open. So it's like
To
Huff
end the
giveth.
game, basically. Yeah, that was on him. Yeah.
Yeah, Huff giveth and Huff taketh away.
that
He
is his
hasn't,
style of play. Yeah, it's boomer bust.
he hasn't been taking away, though, the stupid club, I guess, or I don't know. Maybe he's rusty too.
He did have that one play where he blew up that screen pass in the backfield for like a 2 yard loss. That was really nice.
That
I
was
feel like
awesome.
that's when he's at his best.
Yeah.
You guys want to finish up on loser as Devondre Campbell?
I mean, I was almost kind of not wanting to talk about him because he's not
I
worth our
kind of
time, but we probably should. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I kind of agree. I like don't even want to talk about it either. Just a loser, like really,
Well,
is what it.
I got two clips queued up. One of Mooney
Yeah,
and one of Emmanuel Acho on his TV show just ripping them. So uh,
respect
uh,
to Mooney for just coming out and saying it. I think Kittle did too. I kind of hope we resign Mooney. I don't
That's
think we will, but I like him.
It is so funny that you say that, because like I already liked Mooney and I did want him back, but after that I was like, okay, I definitely want this guy back. Like that's the player that I want on my favorite team, somebody who's going to call people out and hold them accountable and just be
totally.
direct and to the point. So I really hope they find a way to re-sign Mooney.
He's as authentic as they come. So I'm gonna play the clip here for you.
He a professional. He's been playing for a long time. I mean, if he didn't want to play, he shouldn't have just stopped. You know, he could have told him that before the game. So I feel like there was some sucker shit that he did. Definitely hurt the team because D went down, and we needed a linebacker. You know, and I think Flynn was banged up too. So for him to do that, that's some sucker stuff to me, in my opinion. Like, it's probably gonna get cut soon. So it is what it is with that.
I love it.
Don't hold back.
I always love Mooney interviews because he is just himself. He's kind of goofy. Like, he's from Florida, right? Is that where he's from?
Louisiana, maybe.
Okay. Well, wherever he's from, like, you could tell he's not like a West Coaster, just like the way he talks and stuff like that. So I love him. I love his personality, his interviews, and when he's like in a rhythm or just like healthy and everything, mentally and everything.
Good player.
Like, he's a heck of a player. Yeah.
If they could keep that trio together that you've been talking about, Jason, at corner, like if they can do that for another year or two, I mean, obviously they got Lenore locked up and Green is still a rookie. So Mooney's the one that they have to decide whether or not they want to re-sign.
Yeah.
But
and then Malik too, to bring it all together.
Yeah.
Sorry. Last one here is oops, I just closed it. Emmanuel Acho from his TV show. I don't know. He pretty much highlights everything. I don't listen to Emmanuel Acho very often, but everything he said here, I was like, yes, thank you.
He looks like Michael Crabtree. We can't hear it.
Yeah, it's like muted or something.
Can you hear it, Ryan? Oh, can Ryan hear us?
I don't know. Ryan, can you hear us? Nope. Oh.
Wait, I'm so confused.
Can you not hear it?
We'll read lips. No, we can't hear it. But I like that he's pulling up Ronnie Lott. Was that Ronnie Lott?
I mean, if you invoke Ronnie, yeah.
You guys couldn't hear it?
No.
Oh, man. I heard it. He was going off. I'll send it to you in a text.
Yeah, you could see the passion, so I mean, I appreciate it. He was posting stuff last night on Twitter. I saw some of his, or X. Sorry, I can't call it X, but he was
Twitter. Yeah,
he was like, I can't wait to talk about this stuff. I need to talk about it now. So
yeah, it's good. I'll send it to you guys after this. You can watch it on your own. Updated draft rankings here.
Why are we right next to like the person we're playing? Or I get for the Bears at least, we're right next to them now. Miami. It's a big game we need to drop.
No,
it's crazy to me that there's this many bad teams. Like to look at it and see that there's 9 teams that have 4 or less wins at this point of the year. I feel like that's, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like that's more than normal.
Well, yeah, and think about the teams at the top on the other end, like the Eagles, the Lions, and the Chiefs. Man, I think they have like 4 losses in between the 3 of them.
Yeah,
maybe 5 losses.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it, but you're right. I mean, 12 teams, only 5 wins. That's
8 teams with only 3. Like that's maybe the most striking.
Yeah, I mean that's a quarter of the league,
and
that's at 3-10 or worse. Like, bro, what? That is bad. I don't know why that is. And I feel like between 10 and 24 or something, there's just a whole bunch of this. 6 and 7, 7 and 6, 8 and 6, bunch of mid teams. So yeah, obviously this will change after the weekend. Teams are going to play, and I guess I'm rooting against these other 6 and 7 teams here, or I'm rooting for them.
Yeah,
hopefully they can win.
Yeah.
Well, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I'll end it on a positive note. Is like, obviously we're not making the playoffs. Huge disappointment. There's a lot of drama this season. It hasn't been a fun season. But I am weirdly optimistic for the future. of this 49ers team. With the secondary we have, with some of the young players we found, with all the draft picks we have, with how I feel like Sorensen has improved over this season. Still some of the studs that we have. I mean, the adversity we went through, and we still like just completely blew games, and we're still like 500. It's like, I feel like next season, fingers crossed, if we have some better luck with health and we have just a decent draft, I feel like we're going to be a good team next season. And I'm excited and optimistic for a lot of our youngsters. Like the secondary I keep talking about. I hope that we either re-sign Mooney or we can get another good DB in there. So the secondary is going to be even better next year with another year under Sorensen.
We need a
Another
free
year
safety. That's what we
for
need.
Renardo. Oh, for sure. But I am feeling strangely optimistic for next season. And I'm also very excited for the off season. So I think it's going to be a big off season. We're going to shed some fat, aka Debo Samuel. I'm not calling him fat, by the way. I'm just, you know what I mean? Trim the fat. Yeah.
Way to fat shame somebody on the pod.
My bad. We'll have to bleep that part out.
No edits. That's going in.
I'm excited to trim some of the fat and then infuse some new talent. So I feel like it's going to be a big off season, and there's going to be a lot to be excited about this off season, especially the draft. We have a ton of picks. We're going to have a decent pick. So I'm excited. I'm going to be in the weeds and scouting, trying to figure out who's going to be the next Niner. So I'll be excited also to talk about that on the pod. But yeah, so I'm pretty optimistic going forward.
I actually agree with you. I mean, once again, biased Niner fan here, so I'm always going to look for the good and the positive and whatever. But I feel like this season's been cursed. Like we've talked about all the bad stuff that's happened even off the field. And it's just been, for whatever reason, bad. And I feel like in some ways they just got to flush it and get past it and hopefully use it as fuel. I mean, I got to think that Kyle himself is going to be more motivated than he's been in a long time, because he's going to want to shut everybody up that's questioning him. If you think that Kyle is kind of arrogant and's got an ego or whatever, well, this is going to be his chance to show everybody how smart he is and that he's still on his game. And I think the guys, like the leaders, I expect they're still going to be around, like George and Fred. Like, I don't think they're going to get rid of any of those guys. And I think those guys are going to have the right mindset and get the team, focused in a way that they need to be. I feel like, I hate to say it, I know this is recency bias, but I feel a whole lot better about next season if they keep Dre Greenlaw around.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is he a free agent, or why wouldn't he be around?
I'm pretty sure he's a free agent.
Oh, he's getting re-signed. Yeah. That's not a guy you let go. That's the 49ers culture right there. He's not going anywhere.
When we get into the offseason, we'll like deep dive on the roster and look at contracts and make some predictions on trades, re-signs, stuff like that.
We didn't talk about Campbell a whole lot, which is great, but I also think that is something that can galvanize the team. Like this MF quit on us, and we don't want this around here. And like, it becomes like a line in the sand type of thing, right? Like, we want the guys that are ready to run through a wall and make everybody wake the hell up and appreciate things more.
Nick Bosa basically said that after the game. He said, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to find out who wants to be a 49er.
Yeah. And I think Bosa is a guy that's made of the right stuff that's going to be there. And I think McCaffrey's going to come back just ready to breathe fire.
Yeah.
He's going.
Saquon took the spotlight, and he's going to want it back. I'm the best back in football.
So I feel like, there are a lot of reasons for hope. I think. I don't think, you're unjustified in saying that.
I want to add one really quick thing on Devondre Campbell before I let you go, Ryan, is I honestly was low-key worried about Devondre Campbell, like when we signed him. Because I remember when we signed him, he was going on social media talking a bunch of crap about the Packers and they didn't use him right and all this stuff. And I remember being like, oh, that just didn't shine him in a very great light. So I was like, okay, I see the talent. He's just holding. That's the other thing. It's like, dude, you knew Drake Greenlaw was coming back. Like, this wasn't a surprise. But now I'm talking about him too much, so I'm going to move on. But I just wanted to add that.
Not only that, when he was playing, he wasn't playing that great. I mean, how many times this year did we point him out as like a problem? Like so many times. I know that he was improving here recently. Like I think he strung together his best stretch of games when they were getting blown out and losing, but still I think he was starting to finally play a little better. But yeah, it's like you weren't even anything special, and you're reacting like somebody just came in and stole something from you.
Yeah.
Not too much. Unfortunately, I hate to say it. Unlike Debo, he was an All-Pro in 2021, just like Debo, and bro thinks he's still good, and he's just not. Yeah. Last thing, I'll just throw this question for the Niners on the way out.
You boys like Mexico?
Book your trips to Cabo, boys, because it is over.
And that Cabo click's going to get a little bit split up. So enjoy your last vacation all together before it gets split up a little bit.
It freaking better.
I don't know who all makes up the Cabo clique. I know some of them, so I don't know.
Debo, Juice, Kittle.
I didn't think Debo was in it. I thought.
Oh, Debo was like the captain of the Cabo clique.
Okay, all right.
Kyle and it's McCaffrey, Trent, George, Juice, Debo. It's like the guys who've been here for 4 or 5 years. They're all making a ton of money. They vacation in Cabo together.
Does Fred do that?
I don't think so.
I don't know if Fred's a part. I mean, Fred's definitely on the inner circle of the team. I don't know if he's a part of the Cabo clique.
Maybe it's only offensive guys.
Seems like it, actually, based on the names we just said. That's kind of messed up, Kyle.
Sometimes I wonder if Brandon Ayuk wishes he was in it, and that's why he's bitter because he's not in it.
Fred just works out. He doesn't go on vacation.
I could see that.
That's why he's an All-Pro every year, not every other
Did you
year.
see when Dre first went out and they showed him on the sidelines? He was like massaging his calf, and then he just stopped
Doing
and got
dips?
down and was running dips. I was like, Jesus, this man is built different. He's like, I can't be playing out there. I got to get a little workout in. I got to keep these muscles going.
We need more Dre Greenlaws, Juwan Jennings, Diamador Lenores. Like, get more of those guys. That is what established the Niner culture. They had the guys that were just like gonna tear you limb from limb if they had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. In with the Dre Greenlaws and the Juwan Jennings, and out with the Debos and the Kyle Juszczyks.
Trim the fat, replenish with some young talent, and let's run it back.
Yeah. NFC West will be winnable next year. I've seen some people post on Twitter the list, because there's no order yet, but the list of teams the Niners will play next season. Awful.
Really?
We're going to have a super winnable schedule next year. We'll talk about that in the offseason, though.
Nice.
All right. Well, good stuff, guys. We didn't get nearly as depressed as I thought we would.
No. All right. We'll do it again next week.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Peace out.
Later.